We can see everything that everyone does when they're using the technology, everything. As a matter of fact, if they have a problem, they can just shake their phone and a screen comes up and they can type in what the problem is and we can see where they got stuck. So it allows
Awesome.
us to be able to immediately address things and learn, which is, one of the important things about refining technology that you develop. How quickly can you get the changes back into the market so you can see whether you got it right the second time or the third time?
Welcome to Ansible Edge, the podcast highlighting visionary leaders driving small tech-focused businesses. We showcase agile innovators converting bold ideas into sustainable growth and operational excellence. Each episode offers actionable insights, inspiring stories, and practical guidance. Join us in exploring the future, learning from successes and challenges, and understanding technology's transformative potential with empathy and curiosity. Welcome to today's episode. We're honored to have Lew Schulman, Chairman and CEO of iBuild Global, as our guest. Lew is a dynamic social entrepreneur and Navy veteran whose career spans multiple sectors and continents. From pioneering innovative lending models to creating fishing co-ops in South and Central America, Lew has consistently driven initiatives that empower communities and promote sustainable development. In this episode, Lew shares his journey from affordable housing initiatives in the U.S. to founding iBuild Global, a mobile platform revolutionizing the housing construction industry in developing countries. We delve into how iBuild leverages technology to create transparent ecosystems, providing fair access to work and facilitating sustainable growth. Join us for an insightful conversation on the intersection of technology, social good, and sustainable development. All right, Lew, thanks a lot for joining us today. We really appreciate you hopping on today. Can you share a bit about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture of iBuild Global?
Sure. Happy to. Thanks for having me. So I am the chairman of the board and CEO of iBuild Global. I'm also one of the founders. My primary responsibilities are managing the overall operations of iBuild across several different continents, and I generally do a lot of speaking at various conferences related to the technology that we've developed.
Nice.
That's awesome. I was reading through the newsletter from your website and saw all the recent expansion that you guys have been working on, and that sounds really exciting. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I would say that it's been a journey for us. Developing technology in emerging markets is a lot different than providing it in countries like the United States or even Europe. Um, there's a low bar that you have to reach as far as cost in order for both public and private institutions to license your product. So, for us, it's really been a journey and, quite frankly, a significant additional investment in the technology in order to make that work. In the last 2.5 years, post COVID, we've seen an explosion of a desire by both public and private institutions in emerging markets, ones that we've obviously been spending a lot of time in over the last 8 years, to digitize. The reality is that remote management is now a priority because so many companies were hurt by the fact that they couldn't manage their businesses during COVID. And they realized that, hey, we need to figure out a better way to run our businesses, but also more importantly, figure out a way to reduce our costs of operating. And obviously, if you get the right digital products, you can accomplish both of those things.
Absolutely. Can you speak a little bit towards what iGlobal is doing to help with those problems?
Yeah, so we really started out as a construction tech, but a little bit different than what you're typically used to seeing. In emerging markets, there are two significant issues that impede the development of housing and construction in general. The one big reason is a very large informal workforce. And because of that, you're not going on Angie's List and looking for someone to come fix your bathroom. The reality is you have no idea what the quality or quantity of knowledge of the person that you're hiring actually has when you hire them. And therefore, statistically, people in emerging markets are generally repairing things 2 to 3 times before it gets done right. The second thing is there is no long term finance. Why? Well, because if a house or building is going to collapse in 3 to 5 years, no one's going to provide you with a mortgage. And because the informal sector is so large, those people don't have credit scores. So it's virtually impossible for them to get loans. So what we did was we developed a platform that enjoined the entire ecosystem, and it's built in modules. So essentially, there's a workers module, there's a suppliers module, consumers, insurance companies, government agencies, lenders, and essentially each of those can use different pieces of our technology in order to be able to streamline their operations and also manage whatever it is they're trying to manage. And, during COVID, we had a lot of time to have conversations with people where previously, you would have to see them face to face. People were more willing to do Zoom calls and video conferences because they couldn't go anywhere. So, and we couldn't come see them. So, post COVID, of course, everybody's looking at, well, how do we fix things? Because many of these businesses were collapsing or getting absorbed by other businesses and just trying to survive. Governments had a lot less money to spend. So, we've been very busy over the last 2.5 years, and I'm certainly happy for it.
Yeah, this is really amazing work. So it sounds like you have, through these modules, you've built like a multi-stakeholder, multi-party platform, which is creating not just a double-sided marketplace like Uber and Lyft and a lot of these other platforms are doing, but there's a high level of complexity with multiple stakeholders. But it sounds like it also is solving a lot of these original problems of lack of information, lack of legitimacy, and you're bringing a lot of these pieces together. I can imagine it's pretty powerful in the communities that you're working in. Backing up a little bit, are these the problems that you're solving now and describing? Were these what originally inspired the creation of iBuild Global, or was there a different problem set and it's kind of evolved over time?
Well, I mean, my MO has been, you know, I've been in businesses primarily post my being in the military that are in emerging markets, and they've been in different sectors. And I think I was well built to take on this task. And my wife and I, during one of my, chapters of my life, were developers in the United States, in the Southeast United States, and we worked with federal funding to build affordable housing. And we were really building an organization when the market crashed in 2007. And fortunately for us, because we were a nonprofit, we had the ability to be able to acquire foreclosed property before the market did. So I developed a program in partnership with the wicked Goldman Sachs and Blackstone. And essentially, we used their money to acquire foreclosed inventory but force them to hold the rental rates down for 5 years and build to our standard. And that was the way that we contributed to repurposing inventory and allowing people to have healthy homes because they couldn't get mortgages. Nobody could. So that was really the start of okay, we understand that there's a problem. We understand the significance of it here in the US. I started getting inquiries from organizations outside of the US about our type of public private partnership because we were using private money, public money, bank financing in order to be able to accomplish this. And started doing some consulting in Saudi Arabia and India and wound up in Kenya. And we thought that we were going to solve the housing crisis when we got there. We brought a big fund with us. And after about 6 months of investigation, what I realized was I'd probably lose my shirt. And that really opened my eyes because during some of the investigation, what I realized was that the uptake of smartphone technology was really advanced in Africa, and particularly in Kenya. And that allowed me to rethink, well, what would the solution be? Looking at Uber and Airbnb and how they were impacting their sectors of the market, I came up with the idea of iBuild. And fortunately, my wife was working with IBM at the time on something completely different and found out that they had this program that you could submit your idea amongst the thousand that are submitted annually. And they would pick five or six and assign you a top team to help you build your blueprint. And I got selected. And I spent 9 months with a top team of their developers. And the lead manager was the guy who helped develop logistics software for the US military for Afghanistan and Iraq. So he really did understand complex ecosystems, how to make them easy to use. And of course, our experience played a big role in the design phase. Culture plays a huge part in the adoption of technology, and we learned that very early on.
Well, that's amazing. That's like a confluence of both like deep research and encountering things firsthand, along with the good fortune of being selected by IBM and having such a great project lead. It's really exciting, and I can see how it's led to a lot of success that you're seeing now. Is there an example that you can pick out that where your app has really enhanced the customer engagement with these projects and the operational efficiency that kind of ties in experiences with the app, but also the cultural factors in getting adoption and use?
Yes, I can give you 100 of them, but I'll try and make it brief. Um, so when you think about, you know, let's take government agencies or financial institutions, many of their records are still done on Excel spreadsheets. There's very little digitization that's taken place over the years, primarily because of the cost, secondarily because of systematic corruption. And this is a problem. I mean, it's not just in emerging markets in the US too, as we all know. The reality is it takes different forms in different places. To digitize is to illuminate. And that's not always something that people want to do. So I'll give you two examples. One is, and the player shall be named shall be nameless. One of them is the largest microfinance institution in Africa, and essentially they were having problems because they were unable to track the progress of the projects that they were funding. So they would give the money to the recipient, and it was all on the recipient to go out and hire the contractor, make sure the project moved forward. And oftentimes, the loan officer would never get out to the site. Well, our technology is fully geotagged. So a loan officer sitting in their office in Nairobi can absolutely verify with photographs within 1 meter of the project site and chat with whoever's involved in the project so that they can get real time updates of the progress, which then doesn't require them to release as much money because the projects are now being funded in phases. And once they're completed, you can very quickly distribute the funds to the contractor or to the supplier in order to keep the project moving. This was not what was done previously. So that's a really good example. The other thing is that our tools with the same organization are being used to assist with underwriting. It allows them to be able to look at the project site, to get better estimates of what the cost is going to be so that the right amount of funding can be applied to the project. Another example is we're working with a government in Central America, and we just completely built them brand new technology to manage all their housing subsidies. Why? Because they were giving loans to dead people. Probably not a good thing to do, especially when you have limited funds. Because it was very easy to fool the system. You could provide documentation, you could send it in without there being a direct tie in to the databases that would allow you to cross verify. And the other part of it was that they couldn't make enough loans. They were trying to get a certain amount of housing subsidy into the market on an annual basis, and they barely could get 15% because the process was so cumbersome and so full of holes. So those are two really good examples of what digitization can do and how it can change the game. And of course, there's a huge cost factor. There's a huge amount of savings that takes place when you do streamline those very cumbersome processes.
Uh, Absolutely. I love the fact that you are completely jumping the like landline people being based off of a desktop computer or even a laptop computer and going straight to like apps and app development because the truth is like you said in emerging markets and developing countries, the majority of people are getting access to the internet and resources from the devices in their hand, and they don't even have a computer, or if they do have a computer, it's like a company asset that's been provided to them. But I think it's fascinating to be leveraging that aspect of technology in these areas.
I think it's a combination of both things, really. Obviously, large institutions need desktop applications, especially because there are multiple permissions that are required in order for things to take place. but it's really the combination of mobile technology and desktop technology and really understanding. And then we also have a version that's USSD based for people that don't have smartphones, recognizing that there is a segment of the population that lives in rural environments that may only use a smartphone just to check their email at night. So you have to be able to join them into the ecosystem in order to really solve the problem.
Yeah, that's amazing. If you can just visualize the amount of transparency that the digitalization that you're embarking on is providing for all these communities and the various stakeholders, based on what you were saying earlier, it sounds like that would allow funding to flow a lot more with a lot more security, right? Because you were saying earlier, people couldn't get loans, they couldn't get mortgages and lending because there was a lack of information and a lack of transparency. And by digitalizing all this, it solves that problem really directly. And I'm just imagining the amount of additional money and funds that can be flowing in through major institutions and how much better it can make these communities when they have more funds for this sort of infrastructure to get in place.
There's no question. I think it's a journey, quite frankly. The impact isn't as demonstrative initially because so much money has been poured into emerging markets over the years and it's just disappeared. If you look at World Bank statistics on housing, 50 cents of every dollar just vanishes. That's pretty earth shattering when you consider the tens of billions of dollars that are spent on housing annually. And that, because of that, it takes time for people to recognize that there is a move afoot to change the way things are done. And that's really what we're selling to them. Look, it's a journey. If you want more money, you have to prove that you can spend it wisely. And obviously, we're gaining traction.
Yeah. It's a fair trade-off.
Yeah, I think that trust and accountability are two items that definitely go hand in hand. I mean, talking about how things are changing, there's obviously been a huge drive in like all segments of the tech industry lately for like AI and automation. And from your perspective, how do you feel like AI and automation are reshaping business today?
Well, I mean, data is the secret weapon, and AI is changing the way we analyze data. Predictive analysis is a key to change, and AI does it best. So we have embedded AI tools into several of our offerings, and we're seeing the results. And you can imagine having robust databases allows businesses to be able to chart their course and understand where the potholes are, but also to build better products based on the way they're being used and accessed. It also gives you the ability to analyze your own operational efficiency. And it's just, they're terrific tools when they're applied properly.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I think that all tools are interesting and can be used in a lot of different ways. And it seems like businesses are still figuring out the best ways to utilize AI and automation to, meet their needs. You said that you've integrated AI or AI tooling into some of your modules. Can you speak to like an example or a couple examples of how you're using AI and iBuild Global's app to to streamline your
We use it as, we as an organization use it to better understand how our clients' constituents use technology. It really helps us to know whether we've got it right or whether things need to change, what aspects of the technology are being utilized in a most efficient way, why people are reluctant to use other parts of it, but still manage to use enough of the technology to get what they need. It really does help us to refine the product ongoing. But for our customers, it's all about, you know, how do we do more business? How do we better engage our customers? What is it that they really want from us? Are they happy with what they're getting? Um, do they have access to the things they need from us? Are we efficiently administering our responsibilities? It's an amazing feedback loop when you have enormous amounts of data and you can query that data and get pretty, once you get to a certain size database, get pretty accurate answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have any specific examples where this has made like a big difference for you? Are you like, have you applied automation and AI to parts of your app and seen like a huge difference in the way that a specific module is being utilized? Or have you discovered that you need to do like user education to really educate people on, you notice that people weren't using a module the way that you intended? You either redesigned it or educated your users on, well, this is how it's actually supposed to be used, or this was the intended use.
Well, I mean, honestly, the best technology is technology where your users don't know they're being educated. Uh, that your product is so intuitive that essentially it's easy for them to utilize in the way that it's designed. And I would say, from our perspective, that's probably the greatest benefit that we get from using AI. An example of how AI is influencing products that we build, we're working on a project right now for an organization that is very similar to USAID, or what USAID was. And essentially, they provide subsidy for energy efficiency programs. One of the gaps was a scoring system for existing inventory. An example of that would be if someone is building a new development, it's being built from scratch. If someone is building from existing inventory, maybe they're buying a large building in an urban center and they want to convert that into apartments or condos or whatever that may be. We're using AI to essentially examine the structure, determine what changes should be made in order to achieve the scoring necessary to be approved for the finance subsidy. And
Got
that,
it. Sorry.
go ahead.
Well, how are you scoring the buildings? Are you using public records? Are you sending in teams of inspectors that are then providing you with information? Like, how are you actually getting like, if they're using an existing building and converting it, where are you pulling that data from?
So we're using AI to examine the structures and provide us with information based on the building requirements in a particular market and an overlay of energy efficiency programs that currently do exist globally. So the key is getting a benchmark that you can use at the very beginning and then applying materials and processes that would allow you to achieve a particular saving of whether it's electricity or whether it's water. And AI is the only way to actually achieve that without spending a lot of money on consultants going out to the site and providing you with reports, which then delays the project significantly. But there are several programs out there, energy efficiency programs, that quite frankly are very expensive, anywhere from $2,500 per structure all the way up to 25, 30,000. The tools that we're developing will cost a developer around $250, and essentially will help them design a better way to build. And it'll do that in a way that allows them to meet specific timelines without having to wait.
Absolutely. That's a huge gain. Like, the fact that the tooling costs, like, I don't want to, like, the fact that the tooling is so inexpensive when compared to like actually needing to send somebody out to a site to like do that evaluation, just the money that you're saving, the time that you're saving is huge. Are you seeing this sort of tooling, this sort of application as an industry-wide trend, or do you feel like this is something like this is part of iBuild Global's secret sauce to?
I don't know that I would say, I mean, this is innovation, quite frankly. Doesn't exist. There are energy efficiency programs that have apps attached to them, but quite frankly, they still rely heavily on consultants going out and verifying, doing calculations. We're embedding the calculators in the technology and we are offering it to the people that are using it in a way that they understand. And I think that's our secret sauce, is understanding what people can do and designing products that they can use. And I think that's a difference between what we do and what other products or software providers in this space do. There's a significant amount of business in the construction space. 15% to 20% of construction is done by large developers, both commercial and residential. but 80% is done by very small developers or people that are doing self build, and there are no products for them. So we're filling a huge gap that will increase the volume of construction exponentially.
Yeah, definitely. I have a little bit of experience in construction because my dad is a GC here in the US. So I he used to build custom and semi-custom homes, and now he's getting close to retirement, so he's just a GC. So I definitely understand the niche that you're filling. Obviously, I don't understand it quite as well for like outside the US, but in the US, like I definitely see the need that you're filling. And I love the fact that you're building products, you're building applications to meet your customers where they're at. It seems like a lot of products that already exist in the space are like more off the shelf. They're not customizable. They don't like meet people where they actually need the product, need help, right?
Yeah, that's an accurate description. And by the way, it's not really a niche. The market cap on this is about 4 trillion.
Wow, that's huge.
It's,
Has your teams, have they done shadowing of users and observed them using the apps? Is that how you're getting intel on usability? What's a predominant approach that you all use to ensure that the app is fitting the need of the end user?
we can see everything that everyone does when they're using the technology, everything. As a matter of fact, if they have a problem, they can just shake their phone and a screen comes up and they can type in what the problem is and we can see where they got stuck. So it allows
Awesome.
us to be able to immediately address things and learn, which is, one of the important things about refining technology that you develop. How quickly can you get the changes back into the market so you can see whether you got it right the second time or the third time. So we can see how they use it, where they get stuck, where they stop, all those things that help us to better understand, did we build it right? There's a difference between functionality and usability. And we got the usability side right.
Hard to do. It's a lot easier to build functionality only, but to nail the usability, you're talking that like what I'm thinking is iGlobal is like the Apple of the industry where the users actually feel like they can use it, it's easy to use, and there's a lot more adoption. And that's a really special environment from a development side to be able to capture that that's not common.
Yeah,
So
I think what's important is that you give people tools that are interoperable. And I think that's one of the things that obviously iOS got right is that there's a whole ecosystem that nourishes the environment. And we sort of took a page out of their playbook, is that we created interoperability from the very beginning. So people, you get to a certain level and you feel like, oh, well, I could use this app too, and I could use that. And, I'm getting enough business that I could have a bigger business and I could get financing because now I have a record of all the works that I've done, or I need to hire people. But if you can go to the same place and everybody there is all about what you're doing, you have a much greater chance of success. And it also professionalizes the construction industry where you can actually show the work that you've done. I mean, the workers module, you can post pictures of work that you've done, provide references so that when you're answering an ad for a job on your phone, that you can show them the work that you've done and provide them with references so you can get hired for the project.
that's awesome. Yeah, it creates a much higher merit-based environment, and hopefully, the ideal is everybody will win in that kind of marketplace. So,
Exactly.
well, this is really exciting hearing all of this, Lou. Like the major problems that you're solving, and these are social problems too, like housing infrastructure and allowing big money to flow in and better employment markets and everything. Makes me very optimistic about what's to come. Where do you see your opportunities when you look forward in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, obviously, we're looking at expansion here in the U.S., but we built our reputation in a variety of different countries, and the best customer is the one you've already got. We expect to expand in the markets that we currently are invested in. We're making a big push in India this year. As a matter of fact, we're sponsoring a conference with one of the largest universities in India that's taking place at the end of this month. And, we've been working with several of the governments on disaster tools that we've built. We've also branched out into other segments of the market. We're now building tools for agriculture and also for human rights. We last year contracted with one of the more well-known human rights organizations in Europe because they needed to provide tools to corporations that were doing business in Europe because a law was just passed in January requiring companies to provide access to human rights reporting all the way down their value chain, even to companies that may be outside of the EU that are producing products for them. So it's very interesting, where our path has led us, and we're very excited about where we're going.
Yeah, it's the intersection of like capitalism and the flow of money and also doing social good is such a challenging tricky place to operate, but when it's successful it's a huge victory, not just for you all and the people involved, but I think it progresses humanity forward in a lot of ways as well. So just kind of working to wrap things up, curious on a personal level, is there a book or podcast or person that has really inspired you lately to continue motivating you to do the work that you're doing?
I mean, in all fairness, I think along my journey, there have been a lot of people that have had positive influence on, what I've done as far as my career, none greater than my wife. Um, she is a pretty mighty social entrepreneur in her own right. And oftentimes, she's given me perspectives that maybe weren't part of my journey. And the other I can say is, my parents, my grandparents, my mother's a Holocaust survivor. My grandfather came here as a refugee and built a business after everything that he had was taken from him. You know, a lot of those qualities I would like to think are part of, the DNA set that I got. And, then there are other people, the Oracle of Omaha. I always remembered my wife and I had the opportunity to meet him in person at a very small conference. And something that he said to me really resonated, which was, what do you think is the best investment to make right now? And he looked at me and said, the best investment is in yourself. And I followed that rule. And, it's about risk and reward. The more risk you take, the more reward you expect. But the one thing that I've always recognized is that if you can't scale, you're not a solution. And if you can't make money, you can't scale.
Nice. Good words of wisdom. And Lou, it's been really inspiring and motivating listening to you talk about all the work that you're doing with iBuild Global. And we really appreciate your time and joining us today on our podcast. Where can people learn more about iBuild Global?
On our website, www.ibuild.global. There's tons of information there. Next month, we're launching an incubator program where we're going to further help startups be able to acquire the tech that they need in order to be able to get their ideas out in space. So, and that part of the program is being launched by the end of the month. But there's plenty of information there. And if you want to talk to someone, there are links to emails to contact us. And we're happy to have conversations around how we can assist.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And we'll put links in the show notes as well.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for your time, Lou. I really appreciate it. I especially loved hearing about the work that you're doing all over the world and the fact that your wife inspires you and the fact that it sounds like you two are kind of a power couple and the idea that, one plus one does sometimes equals more than two. And that's just inspiring and fascinating. And it was great to hear you speak.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.